You're standing beside a backyard grill while two younger men compare fresh sleeves, dates, symbols, and the artists who designed them. One traces a black line around his wrist. Someone notices your bare forearms and asks how you reached your 50s without putting a single permanent mark on your skin. You glance down, smile once, and say, "Never felt the need." People often hear that answer and assume you're cautious, old-fashioned, afraid of pain, or too private to make a statement with your body. Some read it as a lack of imagination. They think the blank skin means you never had anything important enough to declare. Your silence is the declaration. You grew up when identity wasn't announced through a profile, a personal brand, or a carefully chosen symbol. It lived in scuffed school shoes, cassette cases, football shirts, engine oil under your nails, and the key you carried because nobody would be home when you arrived. People learned you by watching what you did. There were no group chats asking whether you were okay. No camera following every experiment, and no adult translating every rough feeling into a lesson. You learned what you liked by trying it, dropping it, being laughed at, and deciding whether it still mattered the next morning. Most choices could disappear without becoming your permanent identity. The lesson was simple. Who you are has to survive without constant proof. So when doubt showed up, you didn't always explain it. You pushed your hands deeper into your pockets, changed the subject, went back to work, and let your choices collect meaning slowly instead of asking strangers to confirm them. Privacy wasn't a strategy. It was the normal distance between feeling something and showing it. That old training still shapes what you notice now. When someone says, "A tattoo tells the world who you are," you may hear a hidden demand underneath it. Make the private parts of yourself visible, permanent, and easy for everyone else to read before they decide whether you're interesting. Let the surface introduce you before your character can speak. And when you hear, "Everyone has at least one story worth wearing," it can sound less like encouragement and more like pressure to turn grief, loyalty, love, or survival into a public object, so the experience appears real enough to count. The story is treated as unfinished until someone can see the proof. Then comes, "You'd understand once you got one," which can translate to, join the ritual, accept the permanence, and only then will your refusal be treated as informed rather than incomplete. Until then, your choice is framed as something you'll outgrow. You hear more than the words now? After decades of watching rebellion become fashion, fashion become identity, and identity become content, you recognize how quickly a symbol of independence can turn into another social uniform. The meaning may be sincere, but the pressure can still feel familiar, stand apart in the approved way. And that's where the question becomes larger than ink. Are you refusing tattoos? Or refusing the idea that a man must display his inner life to prove he has one? Modern masculinity often asks men to be emotionally open, visually expressive, and instantly readable at the same time. Here's the uncomfortable part. You may also have helped people mistake your privacy for emptiness. You answered deep questions with jokes, gave practical help instead of emotional detail, and expected the people closest to you to understand what you valued without hearing you name it. You wanted to be known through consistency, not confession. You said, "I'm fine," when you meant you were worried. You fixed the shelf, drove the long route, paid the bill, turned up early, and assumed those actions spoke loudly enough that nobody should need a speech or symbol to understand. But actions can be missed when nobody knows what they carry. Others learned to judge men by what they could display. But you sometimes made yourself harder to know by treating explanation as weakness. Their assumptions weren't fair, yet your silence gave them room to harden. You rejected performance so completely that you sometimes withheld the words intimacy required. Is that independence, or is it self-protection? Probably both. What sits underneath your bare skin may not be contempt for tattoos at all. It may be relief. Relief that one part of your life still belongs entirely to you, without needing a caption, an origin story, or permission from the culture around you. Nothing has to be displayed before it can be honored. Relief means you can remember your father without placing his dates on your arm, carry an old betrayal without turning it into a warning label, and love your children without proving that love to a stranger. You can change your understanding of those memories without changing your skin. The feeling remains real without visible evidence. You haven't stopped caring. You've simply separated care from display. You can respect another man's sleeve, ask what it means, and listen without pretending his choice must become yours. and you can keep your own memories unmarked because permanent visibility costs more than immediate understanding gives back. Respect doesn't require imitation, and privacy doesn't require contempt. Not every life needs its private ledger written on the cover. Your body isn't blank. It's undisclosed. Back beside the grill, the younger men are still comparing lines and colors while your bare forearms rest on the table. The question hangs there, but now you don't rush to defend yourself, make a joke, or invent a dramatic reason they'll accept. You let "I never needed one" remain complete. For a moment, they have to sit with a man whose identity isn't available at a glance. They must decide whether mystery means absence, whether restraint means fear, and whether a life can carry loyalty, grief, rebellion, and love without turning them into visible badges. Your unreadability leaves them with no shortcut. So are you protecting an identity that doesn't need to be displayed, or hiding a self you've never learned to reveal?